Welcome to the second installment of our coronavirus hackathon. Last weekend we did this, made this line chart. And let me just review the code real quick, just for those who missed it. We're using VizHub, this platform that I am working on. And here we can use React and ES6 modules. So we've got this app component that loads the Johns Hopkins coronavirus dataset with used data. And, you know, during this past week, this link actually broke. This URL broke because they changed the format. And so I put it back to the link with a fixed commit. So it's not going to break, but it's also not going to update over time. So one thing I'd like to do today is to bring back the live link, and we're going to have to adapt to some changes that they made on their side with regard to the structure of the data. So this loads in that data. And then there's this line chart element or component that renders the data as a line chart. And it's pretty standard D3 plus React line chart where D3 does the calculations and React does the DOM manipulation. So from here, what I'd like to do is make it closer to that scatter plot by John Byrne Murdoch, which I'll bring up real quick. This scatter plot I think is amazing because of the way that it puts this coronavirus data in perspective. It's got a log scale on the y direction, which sort of flattens out the lines. They don't look exponential like they do in the one that I made. And it normalizes everything to start at the 10th death, the date of the 10th death. So to get closer and closer to this, here's what I'm thinking of doing today. First, we add the y-axis, meaning the y-axis ticks and those lines. And then we'll be seeing just a summary line for the whole world, which is what I'm showing now. And then we can break it down like this and show different countries. And so we should get something very similar to this scatter plot and see where we can take it from there. So back in VizHub, I'm going to start by forking this one because I want to preserve this old one. I'll fork this. And then to set my intention, I'm going to rename it to coronavirus log scale. Because that's really all I plan to do for this iteration is to add the y tick marks and then to make it a log scale. See how it looks. So we added the x-axis last time. Let's do the same for the y-axis. And the way we do that is I'm just going to make a new file and call it y-axis.js. And I'm just going to copy paste everything from x-axis into y-axis and change things as needed. So what do we want to do here? This should be a y-axis, so I'm going to change x to y. And then instead of x scale, it's going to be y scale. And remember why we needed inner height for the x-axis? It was to bring it down to the bottom. It was this translate right here. And we don't need to do that for y. So I think I'll just get rid of that inner height. And I'll get rid of this code that uses it. Yeah, we don't need that transform anymore. The React ref we still need. And then, yeah, because we're using it to populate a D3 selection to let D3 do the DOM manipulation. Yeah, this is a really cool type of integration with React and D3. So I'm going to change all these x to y's. And instead of axis bottom, this should be axis left. So I'll change that import as well. And then when we define y-axis, we need to pass in the y scale. And tick size is the thing that makes the tick go all the way across. And so now that I think of it, we are going to need to know about inner width. Because imagine if we do these grid lines, which I would like to do, for the y-axis, they're going to have to go from left to right, and that is inner width. So I'm going to add that as a prop. And the tick size is going to be minus inner width. And oh, this was just some custom stuff I did in the middle of the week to make sure that the label doesn't overlap this this big label here. So I'm just going to remove that. It just removes the last tick. But we need this part here. So yeah, this part here, xssg.call, x-axis, we need, but removing the last one, we don't need. So I'm going to delete that, replace these x's with y's. So now we can go back to linechart.js, and in here, in addition to this x-axis, we can add a y-axis and just change these x's to y's and change inner height to inner width. And this is where it should be working, but there looks like there's some error. So the error is y-axis is not defined. Right. I need to import it. And then we import the x's to y's. And boom, it works. See that? All right, we have added tick marks to the y-axis. Pretty straightforward. So where do we want to go next with this? My gut feeling right now is I kind of want to get rid of these labels that we added earlier, because now that we have these axes, they're not really required. So that's what I'll do next. I'm just going to get rid of x and y marker line, and then when we use them in the code, I can just get rid of this code here that references those, and now the marker lines are gone. And in the x-axis, I added some custom logic to get rid of the last tick, so I'm just going to get rid of that. Okay, there we go. Now we've got all the ticks. All the ticks. So, you know, this is a good breaking point. I'm going to call this the coronavirus, or this is a coronavirus linear y-axis. And I'm going to fork this. So from the coronavirus linear y-axis, I'll fork this and then change the title to log y-axis. And then when we create our y-scale, this is how you can change linear to log. Just change from scale linear to scale log. And we need to import our scale log from D3. And I think that should work, but it looks like it's not working. Let's see why. Okay, we're getting not a numbers in our path. That suggests to me that we have like divide by 0 or something, or trying to take the log of 0. So the trick with log scales is you can't start at 0 with the domain. So it's sort of silly, but let's start at 1. Okay, we get this new visualization here, which is kind of interesting. These labels are not quite right. This is sort of what you get out of the box with D3 axes. Let's see if we can address these labels. So in y-axis is where these labels are getting set up, and it looks like it's just using some default tick format. So if we use tick format, we can specify a function that takes as input one of those tick values, and let's just return tick value. Okay, so now that we're specifying tick format, we're getting labels on everything. But I'm really only interested in like 10, 100, 1,000, or maybe we could put 2 and 5 in there. This is kind of a tricky one. This is where I might want to stop and research what others have done with regard to D3 log scale ticks. Oh, the first thing I see is scale.ticks in observable. Okay, so getting the ticks on a log scale. See, if I do log scale, I don't know, it looks like it should work. So let me give that a try. So the idea is, I wonder, is that going to give us the nice collection of tick marks that we got out of the box? See, just to remind you, if we don't specify the tick format, it gives us a limited number of ticks. So I wonder, if we do console.log yscale.ticks, what do we get? Okay, we get all of them. That's the thing. So we want to like filter out. I don't know how to filter out these ticks. You know, this is a problem that I solved once like years ago, but I don't remember how I did it. Yeah, I'm looking at Stack Overflow. We could specify the tick values. I don't know. Let's see what they've got in observable. Oh, interesting. So I'm reading through these and I noticed here's this one. If we say ticks 10. Oh, there's something new. Okay, D3 changed on us. As with linear and power scales, you can control tick formatting with a second argument to .ticks. So let me try this approach. Yeah, it used to be different than this. Let me try this and see if it works. So this avenue is not going to work. This avenue I don't think is going to work. I'm going to comment that out. And then I'll paste that thing that I found in observable .ticks with S, and boom! Boomski woomski. You see that? These look like pretty good tick marks. Yeah, okay, great. So this is pretty much where I wanted to get to, but let me just do some minor tweaks like the spacing. They seem like quite far away from these lines, and maybe tweak the margins. Just do a little bit of tweaking here. So in line chart, we can easily tweak the margins. Like the bottom seems to be, we don't need that much. And on the right, we don't need that much. On the left. And now I want to look at the spacing between the lines and those numbers. I think that's a property of the axis itself. Yeah, that's tick padding, I believe. So what if I bring that down? Yeah, I'll make it really small, like 3 pixels away. Yeah, now you can really get a feel for, okay, this number is for this line, the top line. It's kind of cool how there's more lines than labels. There's some magic going on inside D3 that's doing that, I think. Pretty cool. Okay, so this is the log scale trajectory of coronavirus deaths. But you wouldn't know that just looking at this chart. You know, I mean, maybe we should add a label to the chart itself. So where should we put it? Should we put it on the top or put it on the left? Okay, we need all 3. So we need a title on the top, we need a y-axis label, and we need an x-axis label. So I'm going to fork again from here, because this is a pretty good state to keep it at. Okay, now I'm going to set my intention by changing the title to, well, the focus is really going to be on labels, visualization labels. So I'm thinking a logical place to put it would be in the axes components. Let's just start with the x-axis. So inside this group element, we could actually put a text element. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to break open this, or wait a minute. That would cause a problem because D3 is managing the DOM within this group element. Yeah, so I'm going to backtrack. Yeah, that would not work because then React would be trying to put stuff in that group element. D3 would be trying to put stuff in that group element. It would be a mess. So maybe we should put those labels right in linechart.js. Yeah, this looks like a good spot. And so SVG text is there. This is showing coronavirus deaths, global deaths for that matter. Hey, look at that, it's done. Ha ha ha. That's not bad actually. Let's tweak that wording a little. I'll say overtime. Okay, so we've got the label for the whole visualization. Now let's add smaller labels perhaps for the x-axis and y-axis. So let's try for the y-axis first. This would be deaths. And we want to rotate that. So I'm thinking we want to rotate that text by 90 degrees and then put it on the side. So let's try rotating it. And we can do that by setting the transform to be, by the way, transform is a super cool domain-specific language of SVG, and you can put a lot of stuff in there. So I think we've used transform translate to move around the group element like this. But you can also have space delimited things in there, one of which is rotate. So let's try adding rotate 90. Let's see what happens. Okay, that worked, but it's pointing downward. I want it to be pointing upward. So let's try inverting that, maybe minus 90. Okay, great, now it's going upwards. I think what I want to do is center the label vertically. Yeah, and to do that, again, I need to research about what this is. SVG, horizontal and vertical align. Oh yeah, text anchor and alignment baseline. My old friends. So let's try text anchor. And we set that to be middle, I think. There we go. So now the label is correctly positioned vertically with respect to the point where it is, which is not where we want it to be. We want it to be down. And so to move it down, we can actually just put that inside this transform. We can say translate space rotate, and you can have translate and rotate both. And so I think there's a syntax error here. Let me just put 0, 0 to start. See, I don't know which one comes first, really, rotate or translate, so I just have to guess. So if I put 50 here, see, it moved to the right. That's not what I want. I want to move down. So if I put 50 here, it goes down. Perfect, perfect. So yeah, the world is still sane. The first argument is x, the second argument is y. We want this to go down by, well, we want it centered here. So we really need to move it down by inner height divided by 2. So these deaths, I mean this label that says deaths, should be vertically centered. And so we need to set the y translate of this to be inner height divided by 2. And there we go. There we go. And I'll auto format that again. That looks to be in the right space vertically. Now we just need to move it over to the left. And can anybody do that? Now, I'm going to demo a brand new feature of VizHub. I'm going to drop this link here in our Slack. So here's the thing that I'm working on for all of you following in Zoom. So you should be able to open this link and check this out. In here, I'm going to go click on this share button and go to collaborators and say anyone can edit. This is a new feature of VizHub that's just was working starting yesterday. So what I want you to do is modify this code to move this deaths label to the left. And I'll give you a hint. It's somewhere in here. It's where you should change. So I'm just going to sit back and wait for somebody. Anybody, feel free to make that change. Hey, somebody did it! Woohoo! Yeah! This is so cool. Nice. Okay, so you changed it to be minus 30 right here.
I would like to change the left a little bit. Would you mind it?
Go ahead. Yeah, you have to change the left margin. That's fine. There we go. Nice. Nice. Oh man, this is so cool. This is so cool. First time somebody's remotely editing my thing on VizHub. I think this really opens up a lot of possibilities. So while you're at it with the left margin, I'm going to adjust the translate again because I think it's a little close. Oh, you're editing it.
Oh.
Let's make it 35.
Okay.
Or maybe 40. And you know, I should be clear that this is not just deaths, but this is cumulative deaths. And I don't know, I don't think we need to add a label that says time, because when you see dates down there, it's kind of self-explanatory. What do you think? Oh, nice. You getting started on it? I think you put text anchor middle on the title at the top. Oh, this is so cool. Let's just add time while we're at it. So I made a new thing down at the bottom, and that for that text anchor should be middle. and this is just going to say time. And this should be going down to the bottom. And so we can do transform translate by inner height. And we don't need the rotate. Cool. So the first text element, I'm going to... So I think that's the one you're editing. Could you just get rid of that transform? Put it back to the way it was? Or actually, that looks decent. That looks decent in the middle. Yeah, so for the topmost label, I'm just gonna... Or actually, I see you're editing that. What is your idea there?
It should be in the middle, right?
Ah, in the middle.
Width divided by 2.
Ah, yes. It's actually, you're halfway there. That's actually correct. I'm going to make a change there and add text anchor middle, and that should do the trick. There we go.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Good.
So now I'm going to work on the time thing. The time should also be translated by... That I also want that to be in the middle horizontally. So that should also be translated by inner width divided by 2. All right, and we can move it down a little bit by just adding something to inner height. Let's say add 8. Or you know what? I want it to be relative to the top of the text. And so this text here, the position is relative to its baseline. See that? That bottom of the T right there, that's called the baseline of the text. And so I want the baseline alignment to be hanging, meaning the top of the T should be hanging down from there. And then whatever we add will be the number of pixels it is away from that bottom line, which is how I'd like to define it. That way we can change the font size and the relative positions of everything would remain consistent. So for that, we can say alignment baseline equals, I think, hanging. Yeah, see that? It works. And by the way, all this stuff is documented very nicely in MDN. Yeah, it's a part of SVG. These are the possible values. All right, so as I was saying, once we set the alignment baseline, we can add something to Y to make this go down. And so that's where we can say inner height plus, let's say, 20. Yeah, see, now it moved downwards. And we can move it a little further, like, I don't know, 40? Yeah, that looks decent. And then we can go back and tweak the margin, the bottom margin, to be like 90 or 80. And you know, I kind of want to make these labels a little smaller than this one, and maybe a little fainter, not quite exactly black. To do that, perhaps the cleanest way would be to assign a class to these text elements here, like axis label, and then use CSS to do this styling. And in React, you have to say class name. Careful. Class name equals axis dash label, and the same for that other one. And then over in our CSS, so we were going to try to change the style of this label here and this label here, because I kind of want to just make them a little smaller and maybe a little bit faded out. And so we added the class to them called axis-label. And by the way, it's helpful to inspect the elements with the Chrome DevTools. That way you can see, okay, definitely, there it is. Class equals axis-label. All right. So what we can do is use these DevTools to figure out what style it should be. And so we could say color is, let's say, red. That didn't work because it's SVG, and we need to say fill is red. There we go. Now it's red. See? There it is. So we can use the Chrome DevTools to pick what color we want. I like the grayscale approach. That color looks decent to me. And so once you find a color you like, you can... Oh, my face is in the way. You can copy it to the clipboard and paste it into your code. So back in the code, in our CSS, I'm going to say fill is, and then paste that color. And then we need to figure out the selector, which is going to be axis-label. And that should work. Okay, great. See, it worked. Now both of them are sort of grayed out, and let's just make them a little smaller. We can set the font size to be, well, 14 is what the tick marks are. I think we can make it bigger than that. Let's make it, I don't know, 18 px, or how about 24? Okay, but anyway, that just gives you a sense of how you can style these labels with CSS. And you can tweak that to your heart's content. Get a designer to work on it.